Taking back America, one consumer at a time. It's the Krieger Files.
And we are back after the break. Fred Dashevsky with USCoinCapital.com joins us. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, good morning, Dave. How are you today?
I am doing fabulous. Now, a lot of people are, of course, concerned. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know who Fred Dashevsky is, he is this numismatic guy that is just like totally in the know. And the last time that I ordered $1,000 worth of junk silver from Fred, not only did I get a fully insured package, I also got a copy, and I've got it sitting right here. This is just an awesome little thing, this guidebook of United States coins for 2025, and I'm like, oh, man, this is totally cool. Fred, you outdid yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, that is the official guidebook of United States coins. It's been published for 75-plus years. It's a great reference guide because it shows and talks about every single U.S. coin ever minted from the very beginning in the 1790s until this year. It has pictures of each coin, and it tries to estimate values in various conditions. It shows how many were minted. There's some background information at the beginning of the book that talks about the locations where physical coins have been produced, the various mints, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Carson City, etc., and the years that they produce coins, where the mint marks are located on coins. So I think anybody that's accumulating, even though most of our customers are not what I would call collectors, it's just great background information, and we just want to make sure that that's available to our customers. So, yeah, we threw that in as a free little goodie.
Well, I really appreciated it because, man, I opened that up and just got my mind blown because I can't believe how much history is in this book. Folks, you have to understand something, too. If you haven't been paying attention to what's going on, the BRICS Summit opened yesterday in Russia, and the World Gold Council report confirms that the now 9-member BRICS bloc holds over 20% of the world's gold reserves this year. I mean, this buying frenzy began in 2022 after the U.S. unleashed sanctions on Russia, driving BRICS members to stockpile gold at a breakneck pace. Fred, what do you know about this? Do you have the inside track?
Well, central banks have absolutely been aggressively accumulating gold, as you mentioned, for the past several years, in fact, at a pace that we've never seen before, and the accumulation has begun to have an effect. I think I've talked in the past about the 4 variables that account for the regular price of gold, and one of the biggest ones, of course, is central bank purchasing. So as these major banking institutions are supporting their economies by accumulating gold, it represents 2 ideas. One, that they're having some difficulty in believing that their paper money value, whatever it may be within their own country, will remain as valuable, so they're hedging their bets. And also, it's like they're trying to provide themselves with protection. Now, in the case of what's happening with BRICS and Russia, we have a really interesting geopolitical dynamic. I mean, obviously, the United States has been trying to put pressure on Russia and Putin because we are not happy with the invasion of Ukraine. Simultaneously, however, there's been a tremendous amount of pushback against the United States, and Russia is trying to establish and become almost partners with the BRICS nations, which, the U.S.-led efforts to try to isolate Russia are really not working well. And if this BRICS situation continues to develop, it may thwart the efforts of the Western economies to try to cut Russia off, which was part of their big plan. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of growth with the number of countries that attended this conference this week. I think it was 36 countries now. This thing originally started, it was Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Now we're getting Ethiopia, Egypt, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and some small countries, Malaysia, Azerbaijan. But they're all beginning to talk about proposing even a big network to compete with SWIFT, for example, which was one of the ways we cut Putin out of the Western economies, as the SWIFT system allows countries to conduct commerce amongst each other quickly within different currencies, and we try to cut Russia out. Now they're talking about establishing their own system within the countries that have agreed to be part of BRICS. And effectively, this is basically destroying the efforts of the West to isolate Russia.
So the SWIFT system, for those that don't understand this is their own mechanism that works much like our central bank clearinghouse, does it not?
It does. And again, the idea was to try to provide simple, easy, and rapid liquidity between countries conducting commerce. To be cut out of the system, it just makes it much more problematic to try to conduct commerce across the world. And if we're trying to make efforts, and I say we, if the United States is making these efforts to try to isolate Russia, this was a big step. Cut them out of this process and make them kind of have to go individually between one country and another. There was no simple system. So what they're looking to do now, and again, it seems like they're gaining some traction here, is they're just saying, well, hell, we'll set up our own system, and the countries that are willing to work with us within, let's say, this BRIC system, will create our own SWIFT. Therefore, we don't care if we can't play within the Western U.S. system. We'll make our own.
Well, and see, yesterday we reported that Michael Yon posted an article saying that the bank, BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, has also moved into the gold market and is starting to become what we say under accumulation in the gold market. What have you heard on that end?
Yep, same thing that's been happening there for the same reason. And look at what's happened to the price of gold. So gold has been under a lot of pressure. The suppression of both gold and silver has been extensive for many, many years, because it's always a sign that there's a fundamental flaw with the world of paper money. And they don't want to lose confidence amongst the people that do conduct commerce with paper funds. So they always want to keep the price of gold and silver down, because it's an indicator. It's sort of like a warning light on your engine that there's a real problem going on. But meanwhile, gold is now $2,740 an ounce. It's absolutely incredible the run it's taken. Silver is sitting at $34. It's up some 40% or more since just January 1st this year. So obviously, a lot of people are looking at the idea that they don't have the confidence in the paper funds, and most of the places around the world that have the opportunity to shore up the value of their wealth, they're not doing it by investing in a foreign currency, which was the standard way to do it. You know, if you thought the Chinese yuan was weak, well, you could buy Japanese yen, or you could buy US dollars or euros. You could shift between the various currencies to try to stabilize any flaws within one part. But that's not working anymore, because all of the paper currencies around the world are experiencing the same problem. And it's this massive increase in money that is really creating it. And I don't think it's easy to understand this without looking at the numbers. In the last 12 months, there has been as much as about 40% of all of the money that has ever been printed has been added into the economy in the past 12 months. We're talking about $12 trillion has been added since 2009. That pushes the total of money supply now to $21.2 trillion worth of paper floating around. And if you think about that in relative terms, 21.2. Okay, so the 0.2, that 200 billion, that was the total money supply some 40 years ago. So the rapid increase in the amount of paper that's floating around the world, it has to start showing up. And my concern is that when they try to hide it by burying it under statistical data or just keeping it from being obvious, once in a while it blows up. And remember the last time in 2008 when the system blew up, we almost bankrupted, the entire world's economy. If it blows up again this time, it would be much larger than 2008, which required an infusion of about $1 trillion overnight, or the entire economy would have collapsed. So if we face another fundamental problem like that going forward, $1 trillion won't do it. We're going to need a lot more paper. My expectation going back 4 years ago was that the U.S. is going to sit on $50 trillion worth of national debt within 10 years. I think we're now down to about 5 years from now, we will be holding $50 trillion in national debt. That will require so much money just in interest payments. I really foresee some economic problems going forward that will require the printing of so much additional paper money. All the central banks around the world will have to continue to provide wealth protection by accumulating more gold and silver. even Bank of America is estimating that we're going to see $3,000 gold within the next couple of years. I mean, these are just remarkable numbers.
And you don't see that going down anytime soon because the amount of debt stuff floating around. I mean, that's all this is. Federal Reserve notes are nothing but notes. Notes are promises to pay. It's evidence of debt. It's evidence of our Congress that's gone crazy, spending like drunken sailors in a strip club, as I always like to use that term. But the thing is now, you've got 78% of oil trade within the BRICS bloc now being settled in non-dollar currencies. This is a scary thought. We're going to be back with Fred Dashevsky after these quick messages to continue our conversation. You need to prepare for the fallout, folks, and get yourself in gold and silver. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, back at 48 minutes after the hour with Fred Dashevsky from uscoincapital.com. That's 800-878-2646. You should be on the phone right now calling them. They're open. You need to be stocking up. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Fred. I buy my silver from Fred. I'm having a hard time, because a lot of people, Fred, are having issues trying to come up with enough cash to buy what gold is at right now. Do you have any deals going on in gold?
Not so much in gold, but I do have a silver deal today. I do have a group of the silver dollars known as Morgan silver dollars. If you look at your little red book that you have, you'll note that the Morgan silver dollars were the standard American silver dollar made between 1878 and they ran through 1921, where there was a design change. So the Morgans, named after George T. Morgan, he was the actual designer who worked at the Mint, who created the coin. They were struck as the standard U.S. silver dollars, and a variety of them were minted, some of them quite rare. There are actually examples that are worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Standard ones, in mint condition can run anywhere between 75 and a few $100. What I did is I put together a group of Morgan dollars that are all NGC graded in Mint State 63. What that means is that they've been independently certified and graded, not only as authentic, but also as mint condition, each one sealed in its own little tamper-proof holder. MS-63 Morgans, a box, which is 20 coins that comes in this little row box. So each of the coin holders fits in a slot, 20 slots within the box. Normally this would be $1,500 for the 20 coins. I have it available today for $1,350 delivered for any of your listeners, as long as I have the supplies available. $1,350 for a group of 20 mint condition original Morgan dollars dated between 1878 and 1921.
And see, people, if you've never bought silver before, understand that, yes, everything's got a premium because the dealers have to charge a premium to stay in business. Fred, for those that have never done this before, could you explain how the process works?
Sure. Different coins have different kinds of values. So the most common stuff are what we refer to, I hate the expression, but it is commonly used. It's called junk silver. And basically it refers to the circulated quarters, dimes, or 50-cent pieces, half dollars, quarters, and dimes. And this would be up to 1964 because that's when all the U.S. coins actually were made of silver. After the date of 1964, the silver drops to 0 on quarters and dimes and only 40% silver for the halves. So up to 64 and before we have silver coins. Now the circulated ones, so these are ones that are just like change, like you would have in your pocket, but happen to be made of silver. They carry the lowest premium over the value of silver that they're made of any coin. And they're very affordable because the premiums have actually come down dramatically from a high point where we were at $8.50 per ounce over spot for every silver coin. We're down now to about 40-50 cents on average. So what that has done is it effectively has allowed somebody who hasn't bought silver yet to buy it as if the price of silver instead of $34 is more like $28 or $29. We're basically paying the same for the coins today at $34 silver as we were when it was $28 because the premiums have compressed. Now, on the silver dollars, like these old silver coins, they are much more valuable than just their metal content. They have a lot more what we call numismatic value, especially in mint condition. Dollars are much rarer than the quarters, dimes, and halves. So they're not something that we look at that is directly tied to the price of silver, although it is a big function of their value. They are a little bit more valued based upon their scarcity, particularly in the mint condition.
So the weight of the silver dollar is?
They weigh an ounce. There's 0.77 ounces of pure silver in each one. And even a circulated one would run around $35 or so for the worst possible examples. And again, these are mint condition examples that are selling for, less than $70 a coin. And if you think about it, the grading fee, just to put a coin in a holder one at a time, is about $35. So effectively, these things are very inexpensive, and they've been performing quite well. So it's just a great way to accumulate silver. A lot of people have been asking us for something like this as holiday gifts. They love to give these things away. It's a wonderful way to add silver to your position without a lot of weight, and it's a great way to do it as a gift if you're looking for something for the holidays.
That's a great idea, folks. There's something new. Give silver coins away in the Christmas stocking, et cetera, et cetera. The gold in local currencies, this shift that BRICS is doing right now is more than a geopolitical move. It's a warning sign. The financial system is unstable. I mean, would that be a fair statement?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're running a deficit system where the amount of debt is growing so rapidly that the interest payments alone are becoming problematic. That is not a functioning system that's functioning well. It's seriously problematic. And the debate now between the two political parties as we come up to the election, is how to differentiate between dealing with the amount of deficit spending. They're not going to solve it. They're simply going to decide how they're going to adjust their process to, let's say, who is going to benefit the most or the least from the way that they address the problem. But neither political process has a solution. Neither party can offer us an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to go forward, and here we are, America. I have a solution for this $35 trillion worth of national debt, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to be able to solve the problem. They can't. They can't even get to the point where they can stop spending currently more money than they're bringing in. And both parties have presented their economic plans, and they've been looked at objectively. And both plans would add trillions and trillions of dollars to the current debt. So the only question is how rapidly does this impact the value of people's wealth? And we've seen what happens as inflation kicks in. Everybody experienced inflation in real terms in the past couple of years to the point where it was arguably impossible to ignore. And this is the fundamental flaw with running an economy on fiat money. You're going to create a problem. And the problem is it's the public that's going to get screwed because their buying power is going to be fundamentally reduced at an increasing pace, much more rapid than any increase in salaries that people are getting.
And here you have the IMF's chief economist out there saying global inflation fight has been largely won without recession. Who's this guy kidding, Fred?
Well, what they're talking about is inflation based upon statistical data that the government produces to look at it from their point of view. It is not objectively how we experience inflation in real terms. Remember, there are things like the consumer price index and things of that nature are skewed economic numbers that discount things that we all have to deal with. They don't count for things like, insurance or health care. They don't count for food increases. They don't count energy increases. They discount all of these things that we actually in the real world have to deal with in order to create a statistic that looks better. Because governments have to pay out cost of living increases based upon whatever their inflation rate is. They have a vested interest to keep that number down. What they're saying is that they may have reduced the rate inflation is growing, and there has been some success in that effort. But that doesn't mean that they've solved the problem by any means. People should not make that translation.
So the thing is that GDP, and here's another term that a lot of people don't, gross domestic product. People don't understand. I mean, the average American basically contributes, $171,000 to the economy over a lifetime. But the thing is that GDP is not affected by people hedging their bet, acquiring gold and silver. And these countries out there are not buying the coins, they're buying bullion. That would be a fair statement.
Well, a lot of different forms of gold are being accumulated by various different people. So many are buying it in coin form, some are buying it in bullion form, some are buying it in paper contract form. But the GDP represents the economic activity of America, if you look at it that way. And I've always said that, let's say the GDP, which is the amount of production of everything we do nationally, let's say that goes up by 10%, just for argument's sake, and the supply of money also goes up by 10%. Well, they would basically negate each other, and we would not experience a lot of inflation if that were the case. But that's not what we're having. We're having a GDP that's at 3%, and we have an expansion of the money supply at 14%. So in other words, we are expanding the supply of money much more rapidly than the growth of the economy can absorb. And there is simply no way to grow the economy rapidly enough to increase it fast enough to absorb the amount of money we're printing, because the government debt right now is so large that just to create the amount of money they need for interest payments takes more than they can bring in. So when we have all these worldwide systems all accounting for the same process, everybody is deficit spending, and it's just a question of who's spending faster. And people can speculate on whether one currency might look better than the other. But again, I think this BRICS problem, or issue, if you will, is fundamentally going to be the biggest issue going forward, because the value of the U.S. dollar currently around the world is based upon how people see the U.S. economy. Do they see us as strong? And do they believe in the future it will remain that way? Or do they believe that all these financial systems will be flawed and that they will falter? And that's why people are accumulating gold and silver, and honestly, I think they should.
Well, yes, agreed. And we're doing it here at the Krieger Files all the time, folks. That's why we rely on Fred Dashevsky, uscoincapital.com. That's CAPITOL. 1-800-878-2646. That number's right on the tip of my tongue, Fred. I've already got it memorized. We appreciate your coming on and shedding light on the subject matter, Fred. Thank you so much. God bless you for the work you're doing, helping Americans to understand what's going on. Folks, if you have questions, call Fred, start stocking up. Things are getting mission critical right now. In the meantime, it's been fun. We'll be back tomorrow with our Thursday edition of the Krieger Files. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. See you tomorrow.